Hello, all you freedom-loving people. Well, it looks like USAID and the Board of Education are being wound down. President Trump is also working to build up Gaza into the Riviera of the Middle East. Okay, let's get into it. Yesterday, we mentioned that President Trump reinstated the maximum pressure policy on Iran. The order aims to reduce Iranian oil exports to zero in order to prevent Iran from acquiring a nuclear weapon. And it seems that President Trump's message to the Iranians was well received. Today, the Iranian foreign minister responded to the new order. He said that if the main issue is ensuring that Iran does not pursue nuclear weapons, this is achievable and not a difficult matter. However, he also said that maximum pressure is a failed experiment and trying it again will only lead to another failure. But the Iranian official did not respond to President Trump's sanction order targeting Iranian oil exports and Iran's support for terrorist organizations. The head of the United Nations nuclear watchdog told Reuters in December of 2024 that Iran was dramatically accelerating uranium enrichment to 60% purity, which is close to weapons grade levels, which is 90%. However, Iran denies that it's developing nuclear weapons. According to the U.S. Energy Information Administration, Iran's oil export revenues in 2023 were estimated to be around $53 billion. As a member of OPEC, Iran's 2024 oil production reached its highest level since 2018. However, President Trump said he was open to a deal with Iran, and he expressed a willingness to talk to the Iranian leader. This is not the first time that the Trump administration has put maximum pressure on Iran, though. During President Trump's first administration, the U.S. imposed tougher penalties and enforcement on violators of existing sanctions. Amidst U.S. sanctions, CCP companies have become the largest buyers of Iranian oil. The two sides established a trading system using mainly renminbi and a network of intermediaries in order to avoid the U.S. dollar and the restrictions imposed by U.S. regulators. Clearview energy analyst Kevin Book said that the Trump administration may enforce the Stop Harboring Iranian Petroleum, the SHIP Act of 2024, to further restrict Iranian oil exports. The U.S. will also take punitive measures against foreign ports and refineries that process Iranian oil exports in violation of sanctions. President Trump criticized the Biden administration for not strictly enforcing the SHIP Act, which emboldened Iran by allowing it to sell oil to fund a nuclear weapons program and arm militias in the Middle East. President Trump's maximum pressure is likely to spur Iran to take extreme retaliatory measures. The Justice Department last year accused Iranian officials of directing Farhad Shakeri to spy on and attempt to assassinate President Trump in September, but the DOGE thwarted the Iranian plot before the presidential election. Let's take a look at what President Trump said about the worst-case scenario.
It's Iran and their proxies who have threatened to retaliate against you and your team by killing you guys for taking out Soleimani.
Well, they haven't done that, and that would be a terrible thing for them to do, not because of me. If they did that, they would be obliterated. That would be the end. I've left instructions. If they do it, they get obliterated. There won't be anything left, and they shouldn't be able to do it.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu met with President Trump at the White House. He is the first foreign leader to visit the White House in President Trump's second term. Following the meeting, the two leaders held a joint press conference. The two leaders have set the contours of a new strategic framework.
The U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip, and we will do a job with it, too. We'll own it and be responsible for dismantling all of the dangerous unexploded bombs and other weapons on the site, level the site and get rid of the destroyed buildings, level it out, create an economic development that will supply unlimited numbers of jobs and housing for the people of the area.
President Trump said that he hopes the ceasefire will be the beginning of a larger, more lasting peace that will resolve the unrest in the Middle East once and for all. President Trump called the potential of Gaza unbelievable, but he said that Palestinian control of Gaza will never work. President Trump plans to build Gaza into the Riviera of the Middle East. He said, I think you'll make Gaza into an international, unbelievable place. I think the potential in the Gaza Strip is unbelievable, and I think the entire world, representatives from all over the world will be there. Regarding the Palestinians currently living there, President Trump said that the rich countries of the Middle East should reach out to these doomed people. President Trump thinks that they should be given a good, fresh, beautiful piece of land. And then President Trump would get some people to put up the money to build Gaza and make it beautiful, make it livable, and make it pleasant. This proposal is very bold, and the Prime Minister of Israel applauded it.
He has a different idea, and I think it's worth paying attention to this. We're talking about it. He's exploring it with his people, with his staff. I think it's something that could change history, and it's worthwhile really pursuing this avenue.
Steve Witkoff, President Trump's special envoy to the Middle East, also said on Tuesday that the third phase of the ceasefire agreement, rebuilding Gaza, is a very complicated process. According to the interim ceasefire agreement, it will take 3 to 5 years to rebuild Gaza. He urged Arab countries to resettle displaced Palestinians. He said that it would be unfair to explain to the Palestinians that they could not go back until 5 years later, which is ridiculous. Egypt, Jordan, and other Arab states have explicitly rejected President Trump's call so far to resettle the 2.3 million Palestinians in Gaza during the post-war reconstruction. But President Trump is confident that these countries will eventually agree to do so. This effort to bring peace by the current administration comes since the present chaotic situation in the Middle East is related to the policies of the previous administrations of the United States. For most of the past 16 years, the U.S. government has been weakening Israel's position in the Middle East. Fearing escalation and entanglement, U.S. politicians have sought to compromise in exchange for a series of ceasefires. These compromises have spared the radical forces in the Middle East the most polarized ideology in the world, and it has allowed the conflict to fester. But this was not an invention of the Obama administration. This weakening of Israel's position was a strategy that has been promoted by some of the American elite since the 1970s. After the end of the war between Israel and Egypt in 1970, the U.S. pressured Israel to exercise restraint after Egypt violated the ceasefire. So why did Israel listen? Because Israel needs U.S. arms and money and diplomatic support, so Israel remains strategically passive. But the price of such a passive defense approach is tragic. Egypt and Syria launched raids in the 1973 Yom Kippur War, but instead of abandoning this passive defense, Israel continued to adopt it, becoming increasingly dependent on the United States for weapons and funding. Then, on October 7th, tragedy struck again. Whether or not America's elites can realize it, Israel has thought it through. Israel has radically changed its approach of the past half century, and they have regained the self-confidence, initiative, and self-reliance of the pre-1970 era. The way Israel responded to Hamas this time has redefined the dynamics of the Middle East. Israel has not only contained Iran's nearly 5 decade spread throughout the region, Israel has established itself as a power with no obvious rivals. And now that President Trump is back in the White House, he is thinking along the same lines as Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Together, the two nations can look forward to a normalization of the situation in the Middle East. President Trump continues his plan to slim down the federal government. USAID announced on Tuesday that tens of thousands of employees across the agency's global footprint are on mandatory leave as of Friday evening. However, 3 categories of employees are excluded: those who are designated personnel that are responsible for mission-critical functions, core leadership, and specially designated programs. The government will assist employees to return to the United States. USAID's online public statement notes that for employees currently stationed abroad, USAID is working with the State Department to develop a plan to arrange for the employees to return to the U.S. within 30 days, and USAID will pay for the transportation costs. The announcement also mentions that the agency will also consider whether to delay the return to the U.S. based on individual employee circumstances. Considerations include family members' school semesters, medical needs, pregnancy, and security situations. According to a report that was published by the U.S. Congress in January, USAID directly employs more than 10,000 people, nearly two-thirds of whom are based overseas. When a reporter told President Trump on Tuesday that it sounded like he was going to wind down the agency, President Trump laughed and said, "Sounds like it. Look at all the fraud that he's found in this U.S. aid," referring to Elon Musk. "It has to be corrupt." When CNN reported that officials were asked to take leave, they reported that some became hysterical and even cried.
Now, President Trump ran for office saying, "I'm going to review every single penny in the federal budget." Now, how are you going to review the spending in the federal budget without reviewing the spending? And that's what Mr. Musk is doing. Now, many of my Democratic colleagues and some of the tofu-eating wokarati at the USAID are screaming like they're part of a prison riot because they don't want us reviewing the spending. But that's all Mr. Musk is doing, and he's finding some pretty interesting stuff. To my friends who are upset.
Senator John Kennedy not only supports what Elon Musk is doing, but also suggests that these U.S. aid expenditures be made public.
If you notice, my Democratic colleagues and the USAID officials, they're not defending the spending. All they're talking about is process. Oh, it's an insurrection, and Elon Musk doesn't have the authority. Well, sure he has the authority. The president gave it to him. And all he's doing is looking at the spending, just what the president said he was going to appoint Musk to do. Here's what I hope Rubio and Musk do. I would put together all this absurd spending into a booklet. I'd call a press conference, and in front of God and country and the corporate media and the USAID folks and my Democratic colleagues, I'd go over it, item by item by item, every bit of it. The DEI comic books, the transgender operas, the funding of gain-of-function research. I'd go over every bit of it and say, now, do you want to defend this? And they won't. They can't.
And USAID is not the first organization to be eliminated, nor will it be the last.
To my friends who are upset, I would say with respect, call somebody who cares. They better get used to this. It's USAID today. It's going to be Department of Education tomorrow.
And today, yet another scandal involving USAID has been exposed. Yesterday, it was reported that staff at Politico did not get paid for their latest pay period. Reportedly, this was the first time that the company missed a pay period. Politico sent emails to employees claiming a technical error. The technical error was resolved later on Tuesday evening, but this morning it came to light that Politico received over $8 million from USAID across hundreds of grants. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt also confirmed the news during the latest press briefing. Leavitt announced that DOGE is cutting all funding to Politico and other media outlets funded by USAID.
USAID has gotten a lot of attention the last couple of days with some of these bizarre things that taxpayers have been funding. Now it looks like there are a couple media outlets that have been dragged into this conversation as far as USAID funding as well. Does the president have any comment on that?
So upon coming out here to the briefing room, I was made aware of the funding from USAID to media outlets, including Politico, who I know has a seat in this room. And I can confirm that the more than $8 million taxpayer dollars that have gone to essentially subsidizing subscriptions to Politico on the American taxpayers' dime will no longer be happening. The DOGE team is working on canceling those payments now. Again, this is a whole of government effort to ensure that We are going line by line when it comes to the federal government's books. And this president and his team are making decisions across the board on, do these receipts serve the interests of the American people? Is this a good use of the American taxpayers' money? If it is not, that funding will no longer be sent abroad, and American taxpayers will see.
Elon Musk also reacted to the news and stressed that more media outlets are going to see a mysterious drop in revenue as DOGE works to cut costs. Viktor Orban, the Prime Minister of Hungary, also responded to the news. He posted on X. So apparently, USAID financed ultra-progressive Politico in Brussels and basically the entire left-wing media in Hungary under the previous US administration. And they called me Disruptor of the Year. I think the world owes a debt of gratitude to President Donald Trump for uncovering and putting an end to this dark conspiracy. President Trump said on Tuesday that he is considering working with the U.S. Congress and the Teachers Union to dismantle the U.S. Federal Department of Education, but he also did not rule out the possibility of direct implementation through an executive order. President Trump said, "There are some people who say that I could." But President Trump may not like the overuse of executive orders, so he said, "I think I'd work with Congress." President Trump also noted that he would also consult with teachers' unions because the unions are the only group opposing this decision. President Trump hopes that the Department of Education will promote school choice and gradually transfer the department's functions to the states so that the states will manage school operations instead of the federal government. Referring to international education ratings and national state education ranks that were released last month, President Trump criticized the U.S. education system for spending more money per student than other countries, yet students are falling behind in global competitiveness. He said, "If you look at the list, Denmark, Sweden, Norway, and believe it or not, China is doing very well on that list. But he's more satisfied with the administration of the education systems in Iowa and Idaho." He said they, meaning Iowa and Idaho, don't have debt, they don't have problems, they don't have any crimes, relatively speaking, and you would have education that would be the equivalent of Norway and Denmark and various other places that are on the top of that list. According to the Edunomics Lab at Georgetown University in Washington, D.C., the average annual cost of education for public school students nationwide is $16,700, which is a 56% increase since 2013. Washington, D.C. has the highest student expenditures, spending an average of $32,000 per student per year. However, math and reading scores have declined in most states since 2013. In a post on X, on the evening of February 3rd, Musk wrote that the Department of Education was established in 1979 during President Carter's presidency, and that former President Ronald Reagan advocated for the abolition of the Federal Department of Education during his campaign, resulting in the Department of Education being even bigger by the time Reagan left office than it was when he took office. But Musk said that this time is different. Trump will succeed. And today, President Trump also signed an executive order to ban men from women's sports.
In a few moments, I'll sign a historic executive order to ban men from competing in women's sports. It's about time. Under the Trump administration, we will defend the proud tradition of female athletes, and we will not allow men to beat up, injure, and cheat our women and our girls. From now on, women's sports will be only for women. Female athletes have been forced onto the front lines, and men claiming to be girls have stolen more than 3,500 victories. That's a lot. And invaded more than 11,000 competitions designed for women. But all of that ends today because with this executive order, the war on women's sports is over.
And that's a wrap for this episode. Thank you so much for your support of Front Page. Please remember that every like, comment, and share helps more people to see the truth. If you haven't already, please subscribe. And if you have already subscribed, we thank you. But please double check to make sure that you are still subscribed, because some of our audience have reported that they're somehow unsubscribed without their knowledge. We've also heard that many of you don't get notifications of our videos anymore on YouTube. So when you do subscribe on YouTube, please make sure to tap the notification bell as well. Okay, this is our show for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you like what you heard today, please don't forget to like this video and share it with your friends and family, because everybody deserves to know the truth.